Have you ever set a huge goal and felt a brief rush of clarity? 5 years from now, I'll be there. 1 year from now, everything will finally change. Only to wake up each morning feeling heavier instead of sharper. You show up. You put in the hours. You push through the day telling yourself this pressure means you care. But beneath the effort, there is an invisible weight pressing down. A quiet threat you carry everywhere. If I don't reach this goal, then I've failed as a person. That thought slowly reshapes your behavior. You hesitate more than you move. You rehearse plans instead of taking steps. What was supposed to guide you forward tightens into a rope around your neck. Because now time feels hostile and every delay feels dangerous. You start measuring your worth against a calendar instead of your actions. Maybe you've been so afraid of failing that you keep preparing but never fully begin. Maybe you've thrown yourself into work non-stop, believing intensity would save you, only to feel more disoriented the harder you push. Or maybe you finally achieved a goal you obsessed over for years. Promotion, income, status, and the moment passed faster than you expected, leaving an uncomfortable emptiness behind. That hollow feeling is confusing because you did everything right, yet nothing settled inside you. This isn't because you're weak. It isn't because you lack discipline or ambition. It's because you were taught to play a game that quietly drains you. We were told that success requires clear goals, fixed timelines, and visible destinations. But no one warned us about the cost of living that way. Goals pull your identity forward into a future you cannot touch. They turn the present into something to tolerate instead of something to command. Today never feels sufficient because it's only valued for what it leads to tomorrow. Over time, your self-worth becomes tied to outcomes you can't fully control. Markets shift, health changes, people leave. And when life deviates from the plan, anxiety fills the gap. You're not actually living. You're postponing life. You're waiting for permission to feel complete once something external finally lines up. And that is why, no matter how much effort you pour in, it feels like you're running in place, exhausted, alert, constantly preparing for a future moment that keeps moving away, while the only moment where real power exists quietly slips by unnoticed. More than 5 centuries ago, there was a man who looked at the world without fantasy, without comfort, and without faith in blind optimism. And his name was Niccolo Machiavelli. He was not interested in helping people feel inspired, validated, or emotionally safe. He wrote for people who wanted to survive instability, remain standing when power shifted, and retain control in environments where certainty never existed. Machiavelli understood a truth that still unsettles people today. The world does not reward intention, effort, or moral desire. It responds only to position, leverage, and strength. Wanting something deeply does not move reality. Being placed correctly does. This video will not tell you to dream bigger, to trust the process, or to clarify your goals one more time. You've already heard that advice. And if it truly worked, you wouldn't feel this tension right now. Instead, this video is designed to relieve a specific pressure. The quiet suffocation that comes from living with constant targets hanging over your head. It will help you move away from chasing outcomes you can't fully control and towards shaping conditions that quietly control outcomes for you. It will show you how to operate in a way where progress does not inflate your ego and setbacks do not shatter your identity, because your sense of stability no longer depends on a single result going your way. This is not self-help. This is self-command. It's about learning how to govern yourself when motivation fades, when plans break, and when the future refuses to cooperate. If you are tired of pushing without feeling stronger, Tired of setting goals that create pressure but not control? Tired of waiting for the right moment to finally feel grounded in your own life? Then this is not content meant to entertain you. It is meant to recalibrate how you operate. Because the moment you stop asking the world to reward your intentions and start positioning yourself to withstand reality, anxiety loses its grip, effort gains direction, and you begin to feel stable, not because life is easy, but because you are no longer dependent on hope to move forward. Let's be honest for a moment, not in a polite or motivational way, but in a way that actually tells the truth. Why do you really set goals? Not the version you explain to others, not the answer that sounds ambitious, but the real reason underneath. You don't set goals because you're content. You set goals because something in your current life feels wrong. You're dissatisfied with where you are, so you design a future that feels safer than the present, and you mentally escape into it. That's why goals feel comforting. They promise relief without demanding immediate confrontation. A goal is not a map, it's emotional anesthesia. If you hate your job, you don't change how you operate day to day. You tell yourself that in 5 years, you'll be gone. If you feel uncomfortable in your body, you don't restructure your habits today. You set a number on a scale and push the discomfort into the future. If you feel behind, insecure, or invisible, you don't rebuild your internal footing. You chase the abstract idea of success and hope it fixes everything at once. Improvement isn't the problem. Avoidance is. When you organize your life around goals, something subtle but dangerous happens. Your identity moves forward in time. Who you are now becomes provisional, temporary, never enough. The present stops being a place of authority and turns into a holding cell. You endure it instead of shaping it. Every delay feels threatening. Every setback feels personal. And the moment the goal wobbles because timelines slip, conditions change, or life interferes, your sense of self collapses with it. You don't fail because the result didn't happen. You fail because you placed your value inside something unstable. This is what Machiavelli meant when he spoke about fortuna, the unpredictable force of luck, chaos, and shifting circumstances that ignores intention and punishes rigidity. Building your sense of worth on goals is like building a house on the edge of a river. It looks solid on calm days, but the moment the water rises, the structure has nothing to resist with. Goals are rigid by design. They demand that reality behave. They require timing, cooperation, health, stability, and favorable conditions to line up. But reality does not sign contracts. Markets turn, bodies break, relationships end, energy fluctuates. When that happens, the goal-focused person doesn't adapt smoothly. They panic. They feel betrayed. They feel like time is running out. Anxiety spikes because the future they depended on no longer feels guaranteed. Over time, this weakens people, not physically, but internally. Goals train you to rely on certainty in a world that offers none. They teach you to measure yourself by outcomes instead of capability. They reward dreaming more than adjusting. And slowly, without noticing, you become brittle. Strong when conditions cooperate, fragile when they don't. Real strength was never meant to live in a destination. It lives in how you respond when plans fail, how quickly you reorient when the path disappears, how steady you remain when nothing unfolds as expected. The moment you realize that many goals exist not to guide action, but to soothe discomfort, the illusion cracks. You stop sedating yourself with future fantasies. You start dealing with the present as it is. That shift is uncomfortable at first because it removes emotional padding. But it is also where real resilience begins. not in hoping the future will save you, but in building a way of operating that does not collapse when the future refuses to cooperate. Niccolo Machiavelli did not waste time asking what he wanted to achieve in some distant future. He asked a far more dangerous question: where am I standing in this game right now? That single shift separates people who feel powerful from people who stay anxious. A goal sounds clean and motivating on the surface. I want to make $100,000 a year. I want this title, I want that lifestyle. But positioning cuts through the fantasy and forces honesty. It asks, am I actually standing in the flow where money, influence, and opportunity move? Or am I just hoping hard from the sidelines? This difference changes everything. A person selling hours for pay is always chasing money, negotiating, persuading, competing. A person positioned where money must pass through, platforms, decisions, distribution, ownership, becomes unavoidable. One runs every day, the other compounds quietly. That is why you don't need a goal to be rich. You need to be standing in the right place. The same logic applies beyond money. If you want strength, you don't aim for confidence. You place yourself in environments that apply resistance, pressure, and accountability, because strength is a response to stress, not a feeling you think yourself into. If you want skill, you don't promise improvement later. You stand next to people who are already sharper than you, where your weaknesses are exposed and excuses stop working. If you want leverage, you don't focus on effort alone. You move closer to decisions, ownership, and coordination, where small actions create outsized effects. This is why positioning changes the emotional experience of progress. When you live by goals, your mind constantly asks, when will it happen? Am I behind? Am I late? Did I miss my window? Time feels aggressive. Pressure never shuts off. When you live by positioning, the question becomes quieter and more grounded. Am I standing where results naturally emerge from what I'm doing today? The future stops haunting you. Progress becomes structural instead of emotional. Results stop feeling like judgment and start feeling like output. There is a different kind of calm that appears when you understand this, because you are no longer begging reality to cooperate. You are aligning yourself with how reality actually works. Standing in the right place long enough forces outcomes to show up, not because you were lucky, but because the system you placed yourself inside leaves no other option. This is why the idea cuts deeper than motivation. Success is not a destination you eventually reach and relax in. Success is a location you occupy, a set of conditions you remain inside while others keep chasing images in their heads. When you shift from goals to positioning, anxiety loses leverage. You stop bargaining with timelines and start dealing with terrain. You focus on learning the rules of the environment you're in, reading incentives, understanding power flows, and adjusting your behavior accordingly. That focus creates momentum without panic. You stop feeling like you're racing against invisible clocks. Instead, you feel anchored, alert, and responsive. The subtle benefit most people miss is this. When you know you are positioned correctly, patience becomes easy. You don't rush announcements. You don't force outcomes. You let repetition and proximity do the work. Over time, your confidence stops coming from promises you made to yourself and starts coming from where you are standing every day. And once you experience that shift, once you feel how different life becomes when you are no longer chasing, but strategically placed, it becomes clear why so many people feel exhausted despite constant effort. They aren't tired because they lack discipline. They're tired because they're trying to force results while standing in the wrong place. And no amount of motivation can compensate for that mistake. One of the most damaging habits in modern life isn't laziness or lack of ability. It's the need to talk too early about things that haven't been built yet. To announce intention as if intention itself carries weight. You post that you're starting a business. You mention you're getting serious about the gym. You hint at a big plan that's coming soon. It feels productive, but it quietly weakens you. Machiavelli would have recognized this instantly and called it strategic suicide. Because the moment you speak before you act, two predictable reactions are triggered. First, your brain rewards you with dopamine. You get the emotional satisfaction of progress without paying the cost of execution. You feel ahead before you've moved, and that false relief drains urgency. Hunger fades. The edge softens. Second, you create resistance. The instant your goal becomes public, you create observers, and observers are rarely neutral. Some watch with envy, some with doubt, some because your ambition reminds them of what they avoided. Even supportive faces begin to measure you. Pressure appears. Expectations form. Subtle friction builds. This is why goals are loud and agendas are quiet. A goal says, I want the promotion. An agenda says, I am restructuring my value so that the people who decide promotions cannot ignore me. One seeks permission. The other changes leverage. That difference reshapes how you move through the world. When you operate with an agenda, your behavior becomes sharper without effort. You speak less, not because you're hiding, but because words are no longer your currency. You observe more because information becomes more valuable than approval. You act with precision because each move is connected to advantage instead of attention. Silence stops feeling awkward and starts feeling strategic. There is a calm that develops when you know something is being built quietly, while others are still narrating their intentions. Talking leaks power because words spend energy outward. Execution generates power because action stores energy inward. Think about how fragile ambition has become. People need to be seen trying. They need encouragement before results. They need reassurance that they're on the right path. An agenda removes all of that dependency. It is private. It is patient. It does not require belief from anyone else. It only requires consistency from you. There's another effect most people overlook. When you stop broadcasting your plans, you stop being predictable. Your confidence becomes heavier because it's not inflated by feedback. Your presence becomes harder to read because it isn't explained in advance. People sense that something is forming, but they can't label it. And that uncertainty creates respect. You are no longer auditioning. You are arranging conditions. This is not secrecy for drama or manipulation. It's energy discipline. Power compounds best in environments with low noise. Results announce themselves without warning. The world is crowded with people explaining what they're about to do, outlining visions, sharing timelines, seeking early validation. Very few are quietly making themselves harder to replace, harder to ignore, harder to stop. When you replace public goals with a private agenda, you stop living like a performer, waiting for applause, and start operating like a strategist, adjusting the board. That shift alone changes how you carry yourself long before success becomes visible, because while others are spending energy describing the future, you are conserving it to shape the present. And when outcomes finally appear, they don't need justification. They already changed the balance of power. When you live by goals, chaos feels like an attack, something hostile that keeps interrupting the story you planned. But when you live by a system, chaos becomes fuel that forces evolution. This distinction isn't philosophical, it's operational. A goal-based mindset treats disruption as evidence that something went wrong. A system-based mindset treats disruption as information. Take the same event hitting two people at the same time. One loses a job and thinks, "I failed, my plan collapsed, I'm behind." The other loses a job and thinks, "The terrain just shifted. My comfort is gone. Now I'm forced to upgrade." The event is identical. The reaction decides whether the moment weakens or sharpens you. This is why Machiavellian thinking feels uncomfortable to people who depend on stability. Niccolò Machiavelli did not fear loss itself. He feared dependence. He feared being trapped in a position where survival required circumstances to remain friendly. That is why he wrote about fortuna, the unpredictable force of luck, timing, and disorder that enters every life without warning. You cannot control fortuna, but you can control how ready you are when she strikes. Most people avoid asking the question that actually matters because the answer exposes fragility. If everything I rely on disappeared tomorrow, my income, my routine, my structure, would I know exactly what to do next? Not what I hope would happen. Not what sounds impressive. What I would actually execute. If that question produces anxiety, that anxiety is data. It tells you your confidence is conditional. Goals train you to need conditions to cooperate. Systems train you to function when they don't. That's why chaos exposes people so quickly. It removes plans and reveals preparation. When pressure hits, goals crack because they are built on prediction. Systems hold because they are built on capability. Think about physical training. Someone who only performs when conditions are perfect collapses under stress. Someone who trains against resistance grows stronger because of it. The same rule applies psychologically and strategically. Chaos compresses time. It forces decisions. It strips away comfort and removes excuses. For someone without a system, urgency creates panic and impulsive moves. For someone with a system, urgency creates focus and clarity. This is where most people misunderstand the strategist. He doesn't welcome chaos emotionally. He uses it practically. He asks what advantage this disruption creates that did not exist yesterday. Losing stability increases necessity. Increased necessity sharpens perception. Sharper perception leads to better positioning. This is how disorder becomes leverage instead of damage. Most people chase stability because they want to feel safe. The strategist chases readiness because safety is temporary. When you stop trying to insulate yourself from chaos and start training yourself to move inside it, fear changes character. You no longer ask, "How do I avoid disruption?" You ask, "How do I extract value from it?" That shift alone transforms how you walk into uncertainty. You stop waiting for calm conditions. You stop hoping life behaves. You prepare for pressure instead. And when chaos arrives, as it always does, it no longer threatens your identity. It confirms your preparation. What once would have broken you now accelerates you, because you are no longer dependent on things staying the same to move forward. Excessive self-love has quietly become one of the most effective ways to weaken yourself. Because comfort feels humane, but slowly erodes authority. When you constantly excuse your impulses, you train your mind to negotiate with you. You sleep in when you know you shouldn't. You eat whatever is easiest instead of what supports strength. You delay the uncomfortable task and promise you'll make it up tomorrow. None of these choices look dramatic, but together they form a pattern of internal disobedience. Niccolò Machiavelli would have recognized this immediately. He believed a ruler who shows mercy to rebellion invites collapse. And inside your own life, impulses are rebellion. They resist structure. They demand short-term relief. They undermine long-term command. This is why discipline is misunderstood. People think discipline is punishment, suffering, or self-denial. But discipline is not about pain. Discipline is personal sovereignty. It is the ability to give an order and trust that it will be followed. Most people wait to feel motivated before acting. They need the right mood, the right energy, the right encouragement. That means their behavior is controlled by emotion. A disciplined person operates under a different rule set. There is no goal like lose weight or get fit someday. There is a law. I do not negotiate with cravings. I do not debate whether I feel like it. I execute the standard. That shift removes friction from daily life. Decisions disappear. Excuses lose leverage. When you control yourself, something subtle changes in how you move through the world. You enter rooms with a different posture because you are not dependent on comfort. You don't need motivation because you already have command. You don't need encouragement because you are not performing for approval. Confidence stops coming from affirmation and starts coming from consistency. Each time you obey your own rules, trust builds internally. Over time, that trust hardens into authority. There is also a healthy fear that develops, not fear of failure, but fear of losing discipline again. That fear protects order. It keeps standards intact. Most people try to love themselves into progress because they are exhausted from inconsistency. They think gentleness will fix what structure failed to build. But impulses do not respond to kindness. They respond to limits. When you remove negotiation, life simplifies. Mental noise drops. Internal arguments disappear. Discipline frees energy because it eliminates indecision. That is why discipline is the only freedom. When you can command yourself to do the difficult thing and follow through, you are no longer ruled by mood, stress, or circumstance. You become predictable to yourself, and that reliability is power. Others feel it even if they can't name it. While most people wait to feel ready, you move. While they search for motivation, you operate. Slowly, without theatrics, you become someone who is difficult to destabilize. Because the strongest authority in your life is no longer external pressure or emotional comfort. It is the law you enforce within yourself. Consistently, quietly, and without compromise. No goal is coming to save you. No future plan will reach back in time and pull you out of confusion. No ideal version of yourself is on the way to take control for you. What remains, once the noise fades, is brutally simple. The position you choose to stand in, the system you build around your daily actions, the discipline you maintain when no one is watching. While others keep chasing imagined futures, you take control of what is happening now. While they dream, you prepare. While they talk, you execute. And when results finally appear, they don't ask for explanation or validation. They announce themselves through impact. This is the difference between people who feel busy and people who feel grounded. You don't need goals to move forward. You need internal authority. You need a way of operating that still functions when motivation disappears, when conditions shift, and when life becomes uncomfortable. A system gives you something to rely on when emotion fails. It removes drama from progress and replaces it with direction. You stop negotiating with time. You stop living on future promises. You stop waiting for permission to feel stable. Instead, you build leverage through small, repeatable actions that compound quietly. Position replaces fantasy. Structure replaces desire. Law replaces mood. This path feels colder than chasing goals because it offers no emotional reassurance. There is no applause, no instant relief, only responsibility. But it is real. It holds under pressure. It does not collapse when plans break. Most people avoid this path because it demands ownership instead of hope. But if you are done feeling anxious, done feeling behind, done tying your worth to outcomes you cannot command, this is the exit. Choose where you stand carefully. Build systems that don't depend on motivation. Enforce discipline without negotiation. The rest takes care of itself. Cold paths create clarity. Clarity creates patience. Patience creates strength. And strength compounds quietly over time, long after trends fade and noise disappears. When results arrive, you are not surprised. You are already standing where they were always meant to form.